Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, today's video is going to be concerning this, the provocatively titled Xinlehong 9125. We're going to do an unboxing, a bit of a teardown and a run and review of it. Little bit of a backstory to it. I was on eBay, surprise surprise. That and Banggood are really must stay away from. But I was on eBay having a trawl round and I came across a photograph of that with a listing that said 43 quid and something pence. I thought, no, there's no way in God's earth that's going to be 43 quid because they're normally 80-90 pounds. Anyway, I thought, well, go on, I'll chance it. Bought it, half expecting the seller to mail me back and say, oh, we've made a mistake, or there's been a safety issue with them, or we've had to have them all recalled, because that's what normally happens when you end up with a bargain when you're not supposed to. But 3 or 4 days later, blow me if the thing didn't turn up. So it cost me I can't remember what it was, 43 quid something. I'll put an amount in dollars. I was absolutely gobsmacked. Somebody must have made a mistake somewhere. Anyway, I went straight back on to buy another, but surprise surprise, they'd all gone. So either somebody has made a terrible error with the listing, or the seller must have got hold of some cheap, I don't know. But these things are not even on Banggood. Even on Banggood I've seen them advertised at a flash price of something like 70 quid. So I don't even go and buy. I'm not even going to put a link in the description to where I got it, because I just can't find them for that anymore. They've gone. So it must have been an error on the seller's part. But it just shows you, if you are prepared to trawl through eBay every evening, you can sometimes come across some absolute bargains. And hopefully, I haven't opened the box yet, but hopefully this is one of those times. So before we crack the box open, let's have a quick look at the spiel on the box. It says 60 amp ESC. Now this is the thing that really interested me. It's got a double motor. So in there's 2 motors and they drive like a single central shaft. Well, but we'll have a look in a bit. 4x4 obviously. It's got metal shock absorbers. No, it hasn't. It's got metal bits on plastic shock absorbers, and they're not oil. And it's supposed to have a high torque servo. It's going to have to, because these wheels on the front of this thing are massive. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Like I say, I've never opened the box before, so it could be as though this contains something completely different, not a 9125. But anyway, let's get into it. Anyway, in the box we have a set of instructions. What looks to be a transmitter of some description. We'll get into that in a minute. And the truck itself. Let's just okay, I've got to snip this out of the box. Be back in a minute. So it does look as though they've actually sent a Xinlehong 9125. So somebody must have got a sack for that, surely. So what have we got? We've got the battery charger, we've got the instructions, we've got a little wheel wrench there, spanner. Those are quite good actually. That's a bit of an odd thing. Got a spare switch, on-off switch it looks like, and some spare R-clips. We've got our usual Xinlehong transmitter. I believe that they glow up blue when you turn it on. It's got steering and throttle trim, it looks like, and it looks as though you can reverse the steering, and there's a speed mode, high and low. So there you go. Now then, I'm interested to see what's underneath this bodywork, as you probably are, so we'll get into it. Now the first thing you notice when you take the bodywork off is how compact all the gubbins is underneath. I mean, it's all contained in that sort of central chassis area there. There's supposed to be 2 motors in there. 2 motors, a battery, and a servo gear, etc. And to be honest, it doesn't look very big at all, to be honest. I mean, it looks about the same size as the, is it 1/14th or 1/16th Q901, the smaller version. So the smaller version of this. It doesn't look any bigger at all for a 1/10th scale buggy. Anyway, a suspension, super bouncy. No way they're oil at all. Very, very bouncy. These tyres are absolutely huge. Nice and soft though, I must admit. I tell you what we'll do. I think the battery lives in here. And oh, there we go. What have we got? 1600 milliamp hour LiPo. Now, that's another thing that concerns me slightly. Is you're going to probably only be able to fit that type of battery in. I don't think anything else with those battery box dimensions, I don't think anything else is going to fit. So you're sort of always going to be limited to that size battery, unfortunately, because it's a very specific box to put your battery in. What we'll do is we'll have a bit of a tear down. I want to see what these twin motors look like in the back. And there's the ESC on top. So that's what we'll do. I'll get some of these little covers off and see what the crack is underneath. Now, before we go ripping it to pieces, I just thought we'd have a quick look at the suspension. We've got all metal componentry here, metal drive cups, metal drive shafts. They're enormous, they are. There's metal cups this end as well. We've got loads of sort of aluminium bits and pieces with regards to like suspension bracketry. And there are two great big aluminium pieces on the bottom here. I can only imagine they're like little skid plates, really. But they should give you plenty of protection. And also, it's made out of that nice sort of almost rubbery nylon plastic, so it should be able to take a bit of a pounding. Anyway, let's get these covers off, see what's underneath. Well, there's the front end opened up. Everything seems to be fairly straightforward. We've got a very small steering servo, considering it's got to move around these great big wheels. So what it's going to be like, I don't know, but it's not a very big 5-wire steering servo. All the shafts, etc., are ball raced, which is nice. It looks as though everything's pretty much metal. This ring gear here and the gear on the end of the main drive shaft, they're all metal. What the gears are like inside, I don't know, but I'll crack one open anyway because I'm going to shove some lubrication in it. But everything's on ball races, everything's ball race, so that's got to be a bonus. So what we'll do now is I'm dying to see what this twin motor setup looks like at the rear. Okay, so we're in, and what a setup this is. They look like twin 390 motors driving a central shaft, and I can confirm that the gears inside the diffs are all metal. So the diff gears are all metal, pinion gears all metal, all the gears at the end of the drive shaft are all metal, and we've got one plastic gear that takes the power from the motors to the central shaft. So if you're going to have a problem, I would imagine it's going to be that plastic gear that goes first. You can't remove the motors or unplug them from the ESC because they're soldered on. So it's like a one piece. I mean, you can take the motors out, but you'd have to unsolder them. But the ESC is sort of, well, it's like a custom fit into this plastic cover here, and you can't really unplug the motors. So I can imagine it's going to be very difficult if you did want to upgrade it in the future to brushless. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I can imagine it's quite difficult. But yeah, there you go, twin 390 motors driving a central drive shaft. So all that's left for me to do now is try and figure out how the hell I took it apart, put it back together, and we'll go and try the beast, eh? So it's almost back together, and if you're an idiot like me, you will have forgotten that the tyres are directional, and you'll waste 10 minutes of your life taking them off and putting them on the correct direction. Also, these 6 screws here that hold the front diff cover on, the length is critical. If you get them mixed up, you will lock the front diff up. Ask me how I know. So all we've got to do now is put the body on and test the transmitter functions. The on-off button, by the way, is located on top of the body, and don't forget that the transmitter takes 3 AA batteries which you have to supply. Okay, the truck is on and the transmitter is on, and I tell you what, the transmitter, when it binds with the truck, glows a really cool blue. Look at that, fantastic. Now I think I was wrong about the steering servo, because the steering seems pretty quick and responsive, even though it's a tiny little servo. You can reverse it on the transmitter, and it's got steering trim, of course. Should be fully proportional. Yes, it is. Anyway, oh crikey. Anyway, all that's left to do now is take it outside and thrash it round for a bit. Just check this out, guys. See how quiet the transmission is on this thing. Just encountered a problem here, so that's pretty much put an end to this test. Nothing else for it but to go home. Okay, back indoors now. Well, that was short and sweet. It's never a good thing having something break on you first or second time you take it out, but these things happen. At least you know the videos are bona fide from an honesty point of view. I have actually taken it apart and the servo has gone. There must be like a little gear inside that's disintegrated because there's just nothing there now. You can hear the gears grunching inside. It doesn't do anything. But never mind, you know, in life sometimes you get lemons, so you must make lemonade. Or in my case, a YouTube video. Okay, then what did we think of the Xinlehong 9125? Well, let's start with the bad points, and the obvious elephant in the room is that the servo disintegrated second time out. Now I was doing some jumps with it in the first part of the video. Don't know if that disturbed it or damaged it at all in any way. It has got a servo saver on it, which should have taken the most of the impact out on the steering, but you never know, it might be my fault. So the bad servo, obviously. The suspension is very bouncy, but we can do something with that. Set of oil shocks on it, cheap oil shocks, probably sort that out. I have seen some YouTubers just fill in with grease and have done with it. Third, I think the restrictive battery compartment, really. It's sort of limiting to the runtime, 14-15 minutes, and that's about it, really. You want a bit longer than that. So I think with the gentleman I went out with when we filmed this, we discussed putting a battery on top in some sort of a cage. I think that's probably the way forward. Now the good points, it is actually good fun, and until the servo went pop, I was quite enjoying myself. So from that standpoint, big thumbs up. The price I paid for it, you do get an awful lot for your money. 70, 80 quid. It's probably still worth it, to be fair. I mean, there is a lot of metal in the transmission. Like I said, the only plastic gear or plastic part in the transmission really is that central reduction gear. Everything else is metal, so you'd hopefully you should get a decent amount of wear out of it. One of the other plus points, I think you'll agree, is it does look the part. I do like the styling. It looks quite chunky and mean, and when it's blatted around everywhere, it does look the part. Handles quite well. It's got a decent amount of steering lock when the servo isn't broke. Performance wise, well, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's far from the slowest. I mean, it's got the novice friendly high and low setting on the transmitter, so if you've got kids and that, you could put it on the low setting for them and they could quite happily tootle around with it. Like I say, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but it's certainly not the slowest. Okay, crunch time. Would I recommend the Xinlehong 9125? Well, it's very difficult to recommend something that breaks sort of first, second time out. For the money I paid for it, I'd probably prepared to put up with it. I'd just chalk it down to just one of those things. But if I think I paid 80, 90 quid for it, I think I'd probably be a bit peeved. I would still good fun. I'm hoping it's just a one-off. I'm hoping I've just had a bad servo. But I must admit, it does look as though it's got its work cut out turning this steering gear and those wheels. So whether or not it's a bit of a weak point on them, I don't know. I tell you what I did notice as well, the transmission, actually when it's running, it's silent virtually, and the transmission is so smooth, it's absolutely unbelievable. Well, I just can't make my mind up whether or not I will recommend this to anyone. I cannot unequivocally recommend something that broke sort of the second time I used it. So, but I think there is potential here. It was a good laugh before it broke, so I think there is potential here. Perhaps we need to see whether the servo issue is a one-off. I've ordered a new servo. I think we're going to repeat the test in a future video, and I'm going to give you my final decision on it. But it's still up in the air at the moment because there is a lot of potential here. It was quite a good laugh, and it isn't a particularly expensive 1/10 scale basher, so perhaps it's just me. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit the subscribe button below for more similar future content. And there will be a future video as soon as the servo turns up. There will be another part to this where we'll just go and give it a good thrash around. If anything happens to it, that's it, we'll consign it to the waste paper bin. Thanks for watching, guys. See you again soon.